of course, we are back again. Welcome, everyone, to Loaded Mag NUFC Away Days. The football is back, and we are going to talk all things Bournemouth, Newcastle United at the Vitality, or some people still call it Dean Court. I saw back of the next tweet earlier on today from Loaded saying Dean Court, but we'll get Tom's thoughts on that very, very shortly. But Ritchie, how you doing, fella?
I'm all right, mate. You?
All good, mate. We're ready to talk all things Newcastle. But of course, we have to welcome everyone in the chat. Welcome to Russ, one of our sponsors. Great to have you in there as always. We've got Bournemouth Fan TV. Already getting themselves in there. 2-1 Bournemouth. Come on, man. We've not even started yet. We've not even got Tom's opinions on Bournemouth, and you're already throwing in your results there already. To coin a phrase, great to have you in there. Mag Debates, great to see you. Keaty, Tom Lynch, Cole Seggy, back again live. Great to have you on live as always. And Marco Pomo, I'm sure we're going to get some cracking questions coming in from him. Likewise, Geordie Soon for Life as well. Welcome in. Andrew, DB, Steve Coulson. I could just keep going on. We've got Daniel Kane there, Paul Spragg, Les Stapleton. The list is endless. Thank you for coming and joining us. And get your questions in for Tom. We'll get him on just a second. But I just want to get Richie's thoughts first and foremost. Draw against West Ham. We've talked about that. We've kind of exhausted all that chat. Let's move forward. Bournemouth. What are your thoughts going into this weekend, mate?
It's a funny one because it's obviously we only got a point off them when we played home, and we didn't play particularly well in that game. So it's we're on a bit of a wave of obviously emotions because we've qualified for the final of the Carabao Cup. We're still creating chances and stuff. We just need to put them away. And I hope this isn't going to come back to bite us in the arse. But last week I did say, and we both agreed that there's a team out there that's probably going to be on the end of a spanking soon. And I said last week's Away Days, I didn't think it would be West Ham. I thought it would possibly more likely be Bournemouth if it happened. So, but it's the Vitality Stadium is a tough place to go sometimes. I know, obviously, when we went down there the last time, it was a good result. And hopefully it's going to be something like that. But it'll be Eddie Howe's first visit back to the Vitality Stadium since he's left. So that'll be good for him and stuff like that. But obviously he'll show no sentiments of loyalty towards Bournemouth once the whistle goes and for the 90 minutes the game is on. I'm sure that the Bournemouth fans will give him a good round of applause and appreciation when he's there. Obviously, Tom will give us his thoughts on that. It's he's going to want to get his own over his old team, isn't he? Bear in mind they got rid of him, so we'll see what happens from there.
Definitely. I wonder what Tom's thoughts are about that, about the fact that we've already labelled them that they got rid of him. Let's see what he thinks. But look, he's just sorting out his volume at the moment, having some one or two troubles with that. So we'll see what he comes back in. But it's going to be an interesting game, like you said. Really tough to break down at St James's Park. Took like you said, an exact penalty to get a point in that game. So gonna be an interesting one. But look, as always, we love to get the opposition's view. This is what Away Days is all about. It's a pleasure to welcome Tom Jordan from back of the net Bournemouth podcast. How you doing, my man?
Yeah, all right, I suppose, boys. But I'm sure you're all right. So yeah, looking forward to having a chat about this one.
This is exactly how he responded to us when we went when he came and joined us before we went live. So I'm really interested to think or to find out, should I say, on why it's just all right at the moment. But we'll delve into that in a second. But first and foremost, look, I have to say, fantastic debut for you, Tom.
It's not. It's not his debut on Away Days. I double checked it while we were in the intro before. I thought that's where you were going to go, Peter. I apologise.
Yeah. No, okay. I thought it was your debut, but it was great to watch you. If anyone hasn't watched the overlap, they did. I think it's part 2 on YouTube, where they talked about the bottom half of the table, and it was great to hear your thoughts on all things Bournemouth, Tom. So, look, talk to us. How, what's it like at the overlap? What's the setup like? But also, did you feel that you got your opinion across in the way that you wanted to when you're on there with so many of the fans?
It's difficult, I guess. I think you kind of know what you are when you go to things like this. We are Bournemouth in a relegation battle, and that's not gonna kind of get all the headlines. So you're aware, especially with what come out of Man City, that was always going to take, that was going to be the bulk of the show. And the title race in the top of the league is always going to be talked about a little bit more. It's got more eyes on it, and that's just the way it is. But really nice to go and represent Bournemouth and connect with some people and talk to some different people. Obviously, Newcastle weren't in the same part of the show as us because we're at different ends of the table at the moment. But no, it was nice to chat to other people and just mention kind of what's going on at the moment. I think it was pretty evident that everyone there thinks that ourselves and Southampton are pretty doomed, and it will probably be one other from a bunch of teams. But no, it was good. It was good chat and good opinions, and I enjoyed it, mate.
Good stuff. No, it's great to. It was great to see you on there, and great to know that we've had you on our show, and that you're obviously representing your club in the way you do, because it's great to have fans' opinions and hear from the fans. And I think that's why Sky are doing so well in what they do, especially with the overlap. That's for sure. But look, let's get down to it. There were some things that you said on there that I want to kind of dig deeper into. At this moment in time. Look, I know for a fact, I put it on the screen, I know for a fact that you won't be happy with that in terms of the league table at this moment in time, 19th in the table. But it started so well for you guys. You guys started well, and you were up there, up the top end of that bottom end of the table, up the top, in the top end of the table at some points in that early part of the season. Look, for you, just give us a quick assessment of Bournemouth season, and why has the drop happened as the season's progressed, in your opinion?
It's kind of been in 3 parts, really. I'd say we start with the very start of the season was with Scott Parker, and obviously we lost that 9-0 game, as everyone remembers, to Liverpool. I think we conceded more in our first 3 games than you have all season, actually, or something like that. But we conceded a lot of goals, and we were all over the place, and Parker was saying some weird stuff. So obviously he was relieved of his duties, and we gave Gary Neal a role as interim manager. And I think we saw a little bit of a bounce, which probably lasted longer than we thought. So, for example, obviously going to your place and getting a draw, and it just felt like, we didn't have a load of quality, but we looked together and we looked like a strong bunch that were going to be hard to break down this season.
Yeah.
And then it started to tail away. We took a few leads in games, and we threw it away, and we thought, okay, maybe, all right, Gary O'Neill's going to be gone soon for the World Cup, and we get an experienced manager in, and we'll spend some money and let's see what happens. And for whatever reason, it was, I can't speak on behalf of all fans, but it's got to be 90% were shocked that we gave Gary O'Neill the job, just because what the Premier League's like. He's never managed before. We knew it was a bounce, but he's never been a manager of a football club, and to get new owners and then give him the job was really strange. And then since he's got the job, we've scored 1 goal. We haven't won a game since the World Cup. We drew 1 and lost all the rest. We're struggling to get shots on target, to be honest. I mean, it's been really, really bad to watch. It's just been really frustrating. So it's been up and down season in that sense. But I think everyone's just a little bit confused from a ball perspective, because we spent over 50 million in January, which is a lot of money for us.
I've got it here. I've got it here for you, Tom. Daz, to be fair, Daz, one of the guys that loaded, he dropped this in today, and he said, look, for the show tonight, 54 million.
Yeah.
More than Newcastle up there with Arsenal. Southampton has spent more than you guys, and that's where you guys are in the table, and it's crazy. Obviously, Chelsea are just in a different stratosphere, but you can't say that you haven't put money into that situation. So it's a really interesting situation.
Yeah, well, that's what's even more surprising, really, is you see owners chucking that sort of money, and you think, right, okay, it's pretty obvious that they're desperate to stay in the division, and they're, like you say, they're putting their money where their mouth is, but then they're giving a permanent job to someone that's never done it before. It's very strange, and obviously the run we've had is just absolutely. I mean, 2 wins in 5 months. It's so bad, and it's so yeah to have spent that sort of money, but then not go and get the caliber of manager. We were linked with De Zerbi before Brighton got him. Obviously, Dyche was available, as everyone knew, and we're just missing the boat on these people. And I'm not really sure why. So yeah, a bit of an odd one at the moment, and it's going to be the weirdest atmosphere I think we've ever seen on Saturday. I've got to be honest.
Interesting, very, very interesting. And look, you've touched on it a little bit. We'll go into it again. You've got your manager in. He did have that little bit of a bounce.
Yeah.
There's a few people that I saw on social media that don't believe that he's going to see out the season. Do you believe he'll see out the season as Bournemouth manager?
No, I'll be very surprised if he sees out the weekend, to be honest. I think it could be one of them weird situations where our old manager could potentially, lose our current manager's job, because I just think another defeat at home, I think it could get. There's been murmurings at home games recently of it getting quite not very nice to be around the atmosphere and grumblings and boos and certain things. And I just think that, especially with Eddie Howe coming back and he'll get a lot of love, I think if we lose relatively comfortably or take a bit of a slap in, then I think he'll struggle to stay in much longer, because I think they'll like every club down there, they'll panic. I think Southampton are playing Wolves this weekend as well, so one of them at least has got to get some points. So I just think we'll maybe press that button. If I think his only hope is to surprise everyone and get something this weekend, to be honest.
Surprises and get something at the weekend. That'll be an interesting one, a very, very interesting one. But look, let's wait and see. I think, unless there's anything that you want to ask in particular, Ritchie, I think there's a couple of good questions that have already popped up in the chat that I think would be worth asking.
So I don't know where you want to start, Pete, but I've started quite a few, so you can work your way down whichever way you want to go, mate.
Okay, let's have a look. So Michael Palmer always puts a good question in. He was one at the top of the list. A question for Tom: how short a leash is? Well, you've just kind of already answered that. And a great start. Been worrying for you guys for a while now. You've already heard it, Michael. Tom doesn't believe that he'll make it out of the weekend if Newcastle get the win, which, from our perspective, from a selfish perspective, we all hope we do. So, a good question as always. Tom, if I offered you 35 points now, would you take it? Jordy Toon for Life says, also, what did you see points-wise keeping you up realistically?
Hard, isn't it? It's hard without going through kind of really methodically for everyone's fixtures and seeing a points total. I think that right now, the way we're playing and the fact that, as I mentioned, we've won 2 games in 5 months, I'll definitely take 35 because I can't see where the next point's coming from, to be honest. So I'd probably take that just because it'll probably give us a half a chance. But yeah, really not sure. I think it'll probably be around there, just shy of 40. I would have thought we'll keep you up. But yeah, currently we just can't see where any points coming from. So I'll take 35.
35. Ritchie, what do you think will keep teams up in the Premier League this season? For some reason, I think it's going to be quite high. I think it's going to be really, really high because teams around each other are beating each other, and it just seems like a really strange season. Like teams like Forest, for example, beating the likes of Liverpool and Chelsea, getting points off Chelsea as well, and they're not having great seasons. Well,
and Wolves beating Liverpool 3-0 last week as well. Do you know what I mean? So it's like even when Tom, you can see the look on Tom's face, he's expecting, the Liverpool are going to Wolves will do us a favour, and then they get turned over as well. So it's just one of those things. It's just one of those seasons. It's like obviously everyone's beating each other down the bottom of other teams, and then like teams you'd expect, like you look at Chelsea and Liverpool season, top end with us, like who would have thought we'd have been in this position this time this year? And obviously where we were last year, we were in a similar position to where Bournemouth are this year. So it's interesting. Full stop. This season on all fronts, it's everyone can beat everyone. That's what's really good about this calendar year. Points wise. it's going to be thereabouts 35, 36. I think it's really, really going to be tight down there. But I think if what Tom was right, I think if they're going to get anywhere near that, they probably have to bring a new manager in, unfortunately. I think obviously, you had that good bounce. He got a good point at St James's Park, which I think most teams would take a point at St James's Park. It's becoming the fortress it used to be. Back in the entertainers' day and the Sir Bobby Robson era as well. So to get any sort of a point at St James's is good. And obviously that was at the spell when Gary O'Neill was probably doing better than what I even think their fans were expecting, really. And obviously the board have thought, oh well, if he can continue that on after the World Cup and stuff, which they haven't. Obviously they've just got to reevaluate him now. And I think Tom's right. I think if they don't get 3 points on Saturday, which I don't think they will, I think the new manager will probably be on the way. But it's that difficult question. Who do you bring in though? That's the problem. Who's available as well? Because someone who's fantastic at that end of the table, knows his stuff, like Sean Dyche, just got to a relegation rival in Everton. That would have probably been a fantastic appointment. And I'm sure, you can tell me if I'm wrong here, Tom. I think Sean Dyche really did a fantastic job down there for you. But that's the thing. Who do you bring in if you do get rid of Gary O'Neill?
Yes, that's the difficult thing. I think it's on one hand, if I saw a Dyche, I'd have gone, okay, it's maybe short term, but I can see they're just trying everything to keep us in the division. If it's a younger upcoming manager, say from the Championship, I would think, okay, there's maybe a little bit of direction. There's a plan going forward. If we go down, we're going to stick with this guy and move on. But either way, we need to see some sort of direction, I think. And I think they'll be changed soon. Not Bruce.
That's Andrew just being a wind that was normal.
Look, Bruce is always, if you're looking at managers coming in, if it's not Newcastle United, Bruce is always going to be a topic of conversation with us. That's for sure. And look, we would never ever do that to Bournemouth. Bournemouth have done something amazing for us, although left under difficult circumstances. But you guys have been so positive with regards to Eddie Howe, and look, the questions already come in with regards to Eddie Howe, so I'll drop it on the screen in a second. But talk to us about Eddie Howe. You talked to us from a Bournemouth perspective when you came on the Howe handover with myself and Ritchie. You've obviously been admiring, and I've seen a couple of your tweets over the recent months where you've really sort of admired the job that Eddie Howe's done at Newcastle. But Russ, one of our sponsors, has put the question up here for Tom. Welcome, mate. How do you feel about Eddie coming back? So just give us a little bit of a double whammy, really. Just assess what he's done this season in isolation, but also what type of reception is he going to get, do you think, coming back to, am I right in saying Dean Court, or it is the Vitality, but you guys refer to it as Dean Court?
Yeah, we always call it Dean Court. Yeah, I think it's officially the Vitality Stadium at Dean Court, or something. But it's going to be very weird because it's the first time he's ever come back because of, obviously, we're in a different division. And he took that time out. We haven't played Newcastle at home. We've had you in the Cup away and in the league away. So, yeah, it's going to be a emotional probably for him. It will be, I know we all know what Eddie Howe's like by now. He'll just do the job in hand, but I think he'll find it quite difficult, actually, because of his connections with the football club. And I think because of the type of guy he is, you would have already seen this now, and he's so professional and humble. I think he'll find it difficult to know that there's a manager in the other dugout that's under pressure, and there'll probably be 10,000 Bournemouth fans singing Eddie Howe songs. And I think he'll find that quite difficult, for his fellow pro. But it will be really, really odd because I can't work out. You've got a manager for us that's under a lot of pressure and has been getting a bit of stick. Then you're going to have a manager in the other dugout who's worshipped like a god. Then you've got Callum Wilson, who we absolutely adore, leading the line. Matt Ritchie's going to be running down the touchline, who we love. And then the next minute, you're going to see Ryan Fraser, who's going to get stuffed up to him. I ain't got a clue it's going to be so bizarre. It really is. I mean, we were all rubbing our hands together when we saw Ryan Fraser was back on the bench last week. Thought we'll have some of that. But yeah, it's going to be odd. And as you say, going back to what Eddie's done with you guys, it's on one hand, it's obviously magnificent. On the other hand, I ain't surprised at all. Not at all. I remember as you said, when I come on the Howe handover and spoke about it when you were in the relegation kind of scrap when he come in. I said that for me, that was it. You were safe. and that was no surprise whatsoever. And I remember with kind of the funds and stuff that obviously you guys can play with now. I think I remember saying to a lot of people anyway that the first thing he'll do is he'll improve players that you don't think are that good, because that's what he did with us. And I mean, how many players has he done that for? Almiron, Shah, Joe Linton, Longstaff. I mean, it's just unbelievable. But that is what he does. Recruited well, obviously. And I saw when he got Andy Gordon, obviously people are a bit surprised. It'll make him a world beater because that's what he does. And yeah, what he's done is brilliant. I don't. Can you keep up that top four? I think it's going to be really difficult because I think Tottenham in particular will be hunting you. Surely Chelsea and Liverpool will come at some point, but at the moment you're kind of batting it off and you're so strong defensively. I think the main thing would be just go and get that cup win, go and get that silverware. I'll be so buzzing for him if he can get you guys a trophy. That'd be amazing. But yeah, obviously you lot all love him. We knew you would, and yeah, you're Bournemouth's every Bournemouth fan's second team, shall I say, because of it. So I'm loving seeing what he's doing, mate.
No, I remember you saying that last time, and I know a lot of Newcastle fans in the chat were very happy to hear that. And look, I think almost for a lot of Newcastle fans in response to that, have that mutual respect for Bournemouth because of what he did down there with you guys. But just in addition to the Eddie Howe question, obviously we've got your assessment of what he's done this season, but what has he done differently? Like, have you noticed anything that he's doing at Newcastle? You've talked about the things that you expected, making players better, doing things on the tactics board in terms of getting the tactics right for match days, all the rest of it. But is there anything different in the way in which he sets up Newcastle that you see and go, oh, he didn't do that at Bournemouth? That's different.
Yeah, defensively, that's clearly what he's worked on. I think as a manager for us, it was so fun to watch. It was almost probably not too Bielsa, but a little bit in the sense that we were always exciting to watch. We always scored goals, but we would leak goals. We would leak goals because he'd play brave and we'd get caught against better teams. And we didn't have an awful defence. We had Nathan Ake, for example, very good defender, but it didn't really change anything. We still leaked goals all the time. And obviously, since he's gone away and kind of worked on bits, I think a lot of people have said he's Simeone in Atletico Madrid, and you can see that because I never thought he'd be able to do this defensively. I always felt he'd make you better to watch and, as I said, improve players. But I thought you would get caught now and again. But defensively, I mean, obviously the recruitment helps. Experienced players like Trippier and Burnham, obviously, and then class like Botman. I mean, it's really helped. But he's definitely worked on that as a coach, 100%. It's not as what's the word? It's not quite as gun ho. It's really intense still, and you start really high pressing early from the first whistle like we used to do. But it's not. You don't leave yourself exposed. It's a bit more methodical, I think. So yeah, that would definitely be the main thing. Everything else is kind of what I thought, but with better players. But yeah, defensively, he's definitely worked on something or got coaches around him that have worked on bits, and he's improved it defensively. That was what was my concern, was whether he'd get it sorted defensively from a coach's point of view.
No, interesting. No, really good insight and thoughts there. Did you want to add to that?
I was going to just ask Tom, because obviously when we did the Howe handover, it was a really good insight to what Tom knew and what we briefly knew as Eddie Howe under the Bournemouth era. But I want to know what Tom's thoughts on the evolved version of Eddie Howe when he took that sabbatical. Now he went off to various different clubs around the world, spent time with some of the best managers in the world, and now seeing what he's bringing to the table with Newcastle. What's your thoughts on his evolution as a coach in general compared to his time at Bournemouth?
Yeah, it is. He's almost got a bit more ruthless, I think. I think he's, as I said, we were always nice to watch. We were always quite pretty. He was a coach that was good on the eye. You want to watch an Eddie Howe team. I think what he's went away and done is to win things, to be really successful right at the top end, maybe need to look at the dark arts a little bit, be a little bit nastier, do you know what I mean? And just I've watched Newcastle a lot, and it's just when he's needed to, they've done them things really well and defended as a unit and wound the opposition up, and sometimes I think we were a bit too nice. So I think that side of it he's really worked on and thought, you know what, we're gonna have to. I don't want everyone to like us, because if everyone likes us, that means we're not being fully successful. you want people to dislike you to be successful. So yeah, I think that's what he's worked on a lot. I think he's thought I need to find different ways to win football matches. It's not just all about pretty football, and I think he's got the balance right at the moment.
You can call it shit houses. Yeah,
That's great.
Don't hold back. Like
good teams are shit houses. Good teams are shit houses. Every single season, Man City won the league. Fernandinho and Rodri are making so many fouls all game. Do you know what I mean? You've got to have a bit of that. Also have Vieira, Man United had King. Do you know what I mean? You've got to have a bit of that. But I think he's seen that. Definitely.
And look, we'll stick on the management team as such because there's so many links from Bournemouth to Newcastle now, and we can't not talk about Eddie Howe unless we talk about Mad Dog Tindall. Now there's a question in here with regards to Mad Dog from Michael, and he's put, what happened to Mad Dog Tindall during his time as manager of Bournemouth? Why didn't it work out for him? Even before that, how was he at Bournemouth? That was, is he the same now at Newcastle from what you've seen? What he on the touchline, or has he changed, his personality a little bit?
No, he's the same on the touchline. He's a good laugh, isn't he? Yeah, Eddie looks calm and composed and lets Jason off the leash to go a bit mad. Yeah, it's a real shame. I'm absolutely gutted it didn't work for him as a manager. I think the fact of the matter is he was replacing Eddie Howe. It was always going to be difficult for anyone. I think what probably happened, it was obviously that COVID period, and I think losing, the manager that took us from League Two all the way up to the Premier League, and then obviously getting relegated to the Championship. Quick turnaround. I think we thought at the time, let's try not to change too much. It's been such a successful kind of decade for the club. So we just gave the assistant the chance. And I think Jason probably thought, I'll give it a crack as to see if I can do management. I don't know when Eddie could be out for, Eddie wants his time out. I'll give it a go. Who knows what Eddie's next job's going to be. So, and he done okay. I mean, we're in the Championship. We never left the top six. I think when he was sacked, we were sixth in the league. But we obviously had a very good squad. Because we'd only just gone down. But yeah, he got sacked when we were sixth, and we finished sixth that season. So he won't be too decided. It just didn't quite work. He wanted a manager. I think he'd probably come in, and obviously his relationship's got to change with all the players when he's been at the second. So it just never really worked. It's a real shame for him because I think a lot of fans, it's easy to forget how great a number two he was to Eddie Howe for years, and a decent player for us as well, because you remember that it was a failed management kind of trial really. But listen, I think all the love would be for Eddie, but I think he'll probably get a one Jason Tindall chant on Saturday for sure. I think as a number two, Eddie always spoke highly of him. There's a reason why Eddie has got him straight away when he got his next job. I think he's a top number two, and I think he tried out number one, didn't quite work, and he's gone back to being with Eddie, and it's a hell of a duo that, and he's easy to like when things are going well, isn't he?
I tell you what, you don't have to do the dirty work on the touchline.
He's got so many cards, suspensions. Unbelievable.
I would love a Mad Dog watch. You know how they do that, the match cam?
Yeah, Mad Dog cam.
Yeah, they need to do a Mad Dog cam. Just to track him through the game. Look, Newcastle, if you're watching, I'm sure you are. You need to do a Mad Dog cam, as Ritchie said.
It tells us where Jamal Lascelles gets his shit out. We get the bookers just by standing with this as a substitute trying to widen the throw and take him up.
Did that ever happen at Bournemouth? I imagine it did. Did that ever happen at Bournemouth where you got players on the sidelines picking up bookings to try and get your results over the line?
And we had a few players that could be a bit like that. I think what it was is Eddie was. I think he's done a similar thing with Lascelles, because let's be real. We probably could have got a just as good, if not better, centre half, and as a backup. But I think he's always liked to keep players that you maybe think. I'm not saying this for Lascelles. I don't watch him enough, but players that we thought they're probably past it now, a bit over the hill. But he kept them in the squad, and I think it was one for that on the sideline, but also in the dressing room. I can imagine Lascelles is good in the dressing room, and we always have players like that. That's why he's kept Ritchie around, for example, as well, in my opinion. People that are good around the dressing room, around the place, and he liked them, I think, in the dugout and stuff like that. So yeah, we had a few little kind of players a bit like Lascelles. Harry Arter got a bit like that for us. So yeah, we've had a few like that. But I think Eddie likes them characters in and around the place, definitely.
just to stick with Matt Ritchie, obviously he's been linked every window pretty much for the last year or so with Bournemouth. It looks like this will be his last season with us. He's only had one or two odd appearances off the bench here and there. Started at Sheffield Wednesday in the FA Cup where we lost. But would you take him back at Bournemouth? Would you have him back for a year or two?
I think sentimentally, of course, because he's a legend, but not if we. I mean, if we go down, that could be a conversation actually. But for where we're trying to get to, I don't think it's one of them things in it. Yeah, sentimentally, you love him, but really, should we be trying to progress now? And obviously, Matt Ritchie's on the decline. I'm sure he'd admit that himself. As played a lot of football, I think he still lives down here, which is probably why the link's been there. I think he was also brought up near Portsmouth, and I look at that and think Portsmouth are a top League One club trying to get the Championship. That could make sense in my opinion, because at that level he'd still do a bloody good job, wouldn't he? But I think his legs have probably gone a little bit. I mean, you saw it, didn't you, with Rafa? He started playing him as kind of left wing back, full back. We know him as a right winger, so yeah, I think he's probably on the way out. But to be honest, I think it seems like anyway, because he hadn't had the move, that, as I briefly said, Eddie probably likes him around the place. I think he's quite happy to kind of help the youngsters and be a part of it, and know that he's on the decline, but know he's part of a group and something that's going somewhere. So I always thought he'd probably see the contract out, which I believe's up at the end of the season. And that, so yeah, I think Portsmouth would be my outside shout, actually. Yeah.
Do you not think he might turn back down to Bournemouth? Say the unfortunate event happens and you got relegated again, because obviously he'd be a fantastic leader in the squad. You know, he's done it at Championship level. He's won the league with Newcastle at Championship level, so it'd be fantastic. Experienced leader in the camp for you as well.
Yeah, I certainly think if we were to get relegated, that wouldn't be a bad shout. And obviously, we don't know with Matt Ritchie whether he wants to get into kind of coaching and things like that as well. So it'll all depend on what he wants. But yeah, it will depend if he wants to see out his kind of career as a player, playing week in, week out, or if he's happy to kind of be a part. Because I still think Matt Ritchie is too much on the decline to be a team that will be trying to win the Championship. I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him. But as you say, in terms of leadership, loved at the football club and will be great around the place. 100%. I thought that when we had Tindall and you had Matt Ritchie before you got Eddie Howe, I thought we might get him then because of the link with Tindall. I thought Tindall would try and bring him back, but obviously then Tindall left and weirdly went to you lot anyway. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he comes at some point, even if it's when he's ended his career and gets to the coaching. Who knows? But yeah, we love him here anyway. So
quality. To be fair, just to add to that, he did say in an interview probably about a year ago now that he wanted to play for Portsmouth before he retired.
Okay.
So he did mention that. So it could well be, I mean, if you do get relegated this season, we don't know that yet, that he does, like Ritchie say, go to Bournemouth and have a year or two there, support them to try and get them up, and then maybe drops down then to Portsmouth and see his career. Could well work as a nice little way out in terms of playing for the clubs that he loves and he's always kind of supported. The questions are flying in, and you know what, Ritchie, like you would know because you've seen them as well.
Yeah,
the cracking questions. So I do want to ask as many of these questions as we possibly can, but we've got your thoughts on the job that Eddie Howe has done at Newcastle, and you touched on it briefly about where you think we'll finish, this season. That whether you think we'll just, you've said that you think it will be touch and go with regards to Champions League football. I'm going to put it out there to you. If you could say a position that Newcastle will finish this season, where do you think it will be?
I'll be positive for you. I think it'll just get fourth. Yeah, I think it'll be tight. I think it'll be really tight. I actually think it'll probably come down to you and Tottenham. And I think loads of things play a part in this. How Tottenham are doing in Europe. Do you know what I mean? I think we'll play a part. I think Tottenham are, obviously you're at the FA Cup and Tottenham are in it, and that's a trophy. Tottenham are absolutely desperate for a trophy, as are you guys. So I think if Tottenham keep doing well in the FA Cup, that could help you in a weird way because they'll throw into that. But I think you might just edge Tottenham into fourth. I think the worry always is that when you've got Harry Kane and you've got Son, they can just get wins when they're not playing well, as we've seen recently with you guys. Few draws where would a Harry Kane maybe have got you a win? Do you know what I mean? But But no, I think you might just. I think what's always nice about the League Cup, whether you win it or not, it's over and there's still loads of the season left, so you don't have to wait for it. And if you win it, it can almost be a kickstart then because you've just won a cup, you've got that off your back, you're buzzing for the rest of the season. Yeah. And I think you will win it, so I think you will. That will keep you going and keep you in positive spirits. So yeah, I reckon you'll 4th place in a trophy. There you go.
I think the interesting thing is to back up what Tom says there about Spurs have obviously got the FA Cup. They've also got Europe as well still. Yeah. So they'll be playing twice a week, whereas Newcastle now have pretty much got a 1-game week to see the season out now. I know there's a couple of fixes need to be fixed in, like as in the Brighton one, which will be rearranged from the Carabao Cup weekend, and also the cancelled West Ham game that we had in September when the Queen unfortunately passed. But there's nothing to say that the way that the FA Cup draw works is that if there's a free weekend when the FA Cup draws are on, that you reorganise a fixture there if a team knocked out. Now, I think West Ham have got Man United in the next round of the Cup, but then the weekend after the FA Cup weekend, at the end of, I think it's March, is free. So obviously we're out the FA Cup, and if West Ham are knocked out, there's a free weekend where you can take it. So you don't even have to play twice a week. You might have to play once, depending on when you fit the Brighton one is. So from that, you're going to have a fresh squad. Bear in mind, we've got, as people probably agree with us, we've probably got about a core of 15 decent players at the minute. And, over the rest are probably squad players who need to be moved on or something in the summer. But if we can keep those 15 players fit and you're playing them once a week, I think Newcastle will just kick on the rest of the season, especially when you've got, as I said, Spurs have got to play twice. Even like Chelsea have got to play twice a week. And Liverpool, even if they come through, obviously Chelsea have got a decent squad depth now as well. And some of those aren't even registered for Europe, so they can only play in the league as well. Whereas Liverpool, their squad's quite thin. The injury list is horrendous. Unfortunately, we heard today that Van Dijk might be back for next weekend when we play them, but hopefully he might be put off till the week after, fingers crossed. But I think I agree with Tom. I think we've got really, really good push for 4th place.
Well, I'm in agreement. I think we can get 4th. And I said on the show earlier on this week, if people thought that 4th would just be an easy breeze and would be 5, 6, 7 points clear, getting 4th at a county, you're dead wrong. It's going to be a battle. We know it back in 2012. We ended up losing that battle to Tottenham. But equally, it was a battle all the way. And for the majority of that, we were in the driving seat. So it can change very, very quickly. But I think we are better equipped as a team to deal with it this time, actually, under Howe than we were under Pardew. Although you could probably argue we maybe had better attacking players. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Look, Tottenham are doing okay. They're picking up some results, but we know they can see goals. Lloris is out for 8 weeks. Yeah, that might change things. They might start shipping even more goals because their defense is not strong. And I agree with what Tom said originally, is that it will be between us and Tottenham for that 4th spot. But don't rule us out putting in a run of results that puts us even ahead of Man United. We're only 2 points behind. We've got a game in hand. So you throw them into the equation. They're getting thrown into the title picture equation. Yeah. But yet they're only 2 points behind. We're only 2 points behind them. So they could quite easily get pulled into that mix with us 3. And you know what? I'd rather us have a 3-way fight out for 2 positions than it just be a fight out for 1. So
it's 3 points, by the way, Pete, because they got the point last night, didn't they?
Oh yeah, sorry, against Leeds. That's right. But
we still go above them on goal difference. Goal difference is tremendous compared to theirs.
Yeah, we're flying away. So look, it's going to be an interesting one. But look, going into the game, we'll start focusing on the game a little bit now as we're building into the show. Bruno Guimaraes missing. Serves the second of 3 game ban. He's going to be a huge miss again for Newcastle because he is the guy that makes everything tick. But positively for Newcastle, it looks like, and I'm sure Eddie Howe will confirm this tomorrow, Alexander Isak, and he has been in training because he was pictured yesterday back in training after the concussion scare from the previous week. So he'll be back joining in the squad. But look, out of the players that Newcastle have got available, obviously Miggy aside, Tom, who are those players that you're worried about that could really kind of cause some problems for Bournemouth at the weekend.
It's really funny actually, because I remember when we went to your place early in the season, Bruno Guimaraes had just come back but wasn't right, if you remember, and they had to bring him off. And Isak had just come back and he ended up getting the goal. So it's very similar. But you didn't have Callum didn't play last time, and obviously I think we all love him, but I think it's that typical thing, that striker that he probably needs to start getting a few goals back to back now. He's got Isak breathing down his neck as well. Eddie could quite easily use them both at times. I think he used to always do that with us, but I think Callum will know that he needs to start scoring some goals regularly again, and it's one of them things that an ex-striker comes back to the club. I think we'll all be thinking Callum will probably score. I'm interested to see Joe Linton again, because I love watching him, to be fair. So he'll be an interesting one. But yeah, that right hand side, we're quite our left back Jordan Zamora is quite offensive. So I think I worry a little bit about Almiron getting in behind from that side. And to be honest, we just concede, it feels like, from every cross. So I don't want Trippier to get the ball. But that's a worry. To be honest, I mean, most of them are a bit to worry about. But I've got I don't know, in terms of your predicted lineup more than myself, but just got a feeling with obviously Bruno out, Joe Linton, I guess, probably coming inside, that Anthony Gordon might play. I think he might play him over St. Max, and I think it's probably a good. What Eddie will probably be thinking is, Gordon's a new player, eyes will be on him. Playing against a team that are, we're really, short of confidence. It's a good chance for him to get running at people and maybe, put himself into some form for you. But equally, this could be a game that St. Max comes into form. Do you know what I mean? So you've got some options, but yeah, they're all to be feared at the moment. Even bloody Longstaff scoring goals. So not Fraser, though. Not Fraser. I'm not worried about him.
No, I was going to say, I'll get your thoughts on Fraser as we go to the questions towards the end. We'll save that. We'll save that gem for last. But look, we're getting towards the game, and you mentioned it quite rightly, Tom, that how Newcastle set up. I'll throw the tactics board up in a second, but of course, the way we build up to the game is that we want to look at some stats, and there's only one way we do that on away days.
Evening, lads.
Like magic, he appears.
Good evening, Keith.
Good evening, Keith. 00 Stato. Welcome to Away Days, and great to have you on as always. And look, Tom, we always look to some stats for every game that we play against every opposition. And what have you got for us this week, Keith? Hopefully, some positives for Newcastle.
Yeah, I've got some positive stats both ways, trying to make it balanced as well. Not very many, to be honest, because this is a relatively new sort of, or a fairly recent sort of rivalry, really, if you want to call it that. Because not very many years of history. This one's sort of going back to the early 70s, really, before Newcastle first played Bournemouth. They've only played each other 15 times, and it's fairly balanced. It's sort of won 7 for Newcastle, drawn 4 and lost 4. Newcastle slightly more as well goals in the fixture, 25 compared to 18 for Bournemouth. Newcastle have also got a better defensive record, 5 clean sheets compared to 2 clean sheets for Bournemouth in this history fixture. Eddie Howe, record as manager in games against Bournemouth. Surprisingly, only 2. Twice he didn't manage them when he was at Burnley. 1-1 and drawn 1. And Gary O'Neill, the same. 2 games against Newcastle and the 1 draw and the 1 defeat. Moving on to goalkeepers, Nick Pope's got 12 clean sheets this season in the Premier League compared to Bournemouth's Neto and Mark Travers, who've got 2 clean sheets each for Bournemouth. Callum Wilson, believe it or not, as well, has only played once against his former club and is still yet to score against Bournemouth. Well, Philip Billing with 4 goals in 21 games, and Kiefer Moore with 4 goals in 22 games are Bournemouth's top goal scorers in the league this season so far. Some general stats now. So after winning just 2 of their first 3 Premier League games against Newcastle, Bournemouth are now without a victory in the last 6 against Newcastle, with 3 draws and 3 defeats. So not such a good record in recent times in this fixture for Bournemouth. I can remember a few years ago as well in the relegation season, Bournemouth got a good result at St James. I think it sowed the seeds for Steve McLaren in that game, 3-1 at St James's. But since then, it hasn't been happy at times for Bournemouth. I want to focus on Sean Longstaff because his 2 goals against Southampton in the Carabao Cup and his 1 assist against West Ham last week. That meant it took his goal involvements in the last 2 games to as many as he's had in the last 38. So he's really came on and really stepped up to the plate in the last 2 games, took that leadership, has Sean Longstaff, and it's been pleasing to see. Eddie Howe, from 2013 to 2020, he's just had 2 wins in his first 10 matches against sides he's previously managed. So 2 draws and 6 defeats against Burnley. And since then, his record in matches against Burnley and Bournemouth, he's managed 3 wins in the last 4. So he's really improved record against his former clubs. Bournemouth, they have conceded more goals than any other side in the Premier League. I'm sorry, Tom.
No,
43. It will get better in a moment. Whilst Newcastle have conceded the fewest in the Premier League with 12, which we know we've got the best defensive at the moment record. Newcastle are unbeaten in the last 7 Premier League away games, and that matches the record that they set in 2003-2004 under Sir Bobby Robson.
Wow.
Bournemouth have only managed 1 win in 12 games in the Premier League this season. In the last 12 games in the Premier League, going back to October, 1 win, 2 draws, and 9 defeats, and they're yet to win in 2023. I don't want to tempt fate by saying that. Newcastle are unbeaten in 16 league games, so it really is a bottom to top sort of type of fixture. 9 wins and 7 draws since August. Bournemouth, though, have a better home record. They've got 3 wins, 4 draws, and 4 defeats this season in the home games. Scored 10 and conceded 11, whilst their away form, they've won 1, 2 draws, and 9 defeats, scoring 9 goals and conceding a massive 32. So that just shows you the sliding scale of how well that Bournemouth are slightly better and tougher to break down at home than their away form. And also, just rounding off here, that Bournemouth have only lost 1 game at home this season in the league by more than 1 goal once this season, and that was when they lost to Arsenal, top of the league, 3-0 earlier this season. So they're only losing if they're losing a game at the Vitality, they're only losing by 1 goal. And that rounds off the stats.
Superb. Thank you, as always, Keith. Brilliant stats. And you know what? That just gives a different type of perspective on the game because, Bournemouth, hard to beat at home. They were hard to beat away at our place, at our home, St James's Park. So may not be as easy as people think, having heard some of those stats from Keith. So thank you for that and adding that different type of perspective. But of course, we always like to go to the tactics board and have a look. And I asked you earlier, Tom, to give us your team, and I hope this is right in the terms of how you wanted to set up. I looked at the formation. Does that look about right?
Yeah, that's fine, mate.
Yeah. So we've got the way in which Bournemouth set up, and it's not too dissimilar to Newcastle. Obviously, a little bit narrower, a little bit tighter in that middle block. So from your perspective, I want to get Tom. Where do you think, being the home team, that you're going to potentially cause some problems for Newcastle and maybe get those goals?
It's pretty difficult to try and work out how we're going to cause you problems, to be honest. Really hopeful that Dom Slanky's fit, by the way. Obviously, you asked for the team. He's still a doubt, so we'll find out more probably tomorrow. He has been out lately, but I know he's close, so I've gone with him. If it's not Dom Slanky, it'll be Semenyo, new signing.
He started last week, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, and he's got a bit of pace about him. He's quite handy on the counter attack. But yeah, Dom's obviously our main man through the middle. And then we have got Kiefer Moore as well, of course, who's normally kind of that plan B, really. Traoré looked really good on his debut last week, to be fair. Him and Billing will try and get close to whoever the striker is. With Lerma sitting, he'll sit. Lerma won't move. And Traoré and Billing will try and get up the pitch. And I guess really it will be hoping that we can expose the fullbacks. I mean, it's very difficult with Newcastle because they work so hard. But if the wingers, whether it's St. Max and Almiron as you've got there, if we can just, our fullbacks can get forward, particularly Zamora down that left-hand side. And if we can get kind of a Zamora Anthony, a 2v1 v Trippier potentially, pull one of the centre-halves out, then you might find some gaps. But yeah, I mean, I know the way that you guys play is going to be very difficult. And you'll struggle to find a Bournemouth fan who thinks we're going to score a goal, never mind get something out of the game. So it's really hard. I'm trying to find, because we all know football, and obviously, as you've said a few times, we did go up there and surprise people and get a point off you. And we scored a goal at St James's, and not many teams have done that. So
you're right.
We showed, and I think that goal did come from that left hand side. I don't know if you remember, it was Zamora who got down the left hand side, crossed it in, and Billing got there before Pope. So yeah, that was how we exploited you last time. But last time he did have a particular Ryan Fraser player, and he's probably not as good as Almiron. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I think we'll sit very deep, mate. We'll try and frustrate you and see if we can nick something on a break.
Interesting. Yeah, I was gonna ask. I'm glad you mentioned that about Solanke, because when I saw that, I thought, because you had your new striker in last weekend, but obviously Solanke seems to be the go-to guy in there. And you mentioned about the player who's going to come and support Solanke going forward. Billing did that against St James's and got his goal. And actually, I thought he had a really good game at St James's Park. He played really well. So yeah, there's a few players of interest. Obviously, Traoré coming in, see how he's like. Anthony, take a look at him as well. But Ritchie, I'll come to you. I've gone for pretty much the same team. Well, in fact, it is the same team. I've gone with ASM. What are your thoughts with regards to the lineup? What would you change, and where do you see Newcastle getting that vital win for us at Dean Court?
Well, I think we'll start the same. We discussed this the other night on the show about whether ASM will start or Wilson will. I think that there seem to be the only contentious, discussions at the moment. But for me, that's the team that will start. I think ASM has to produce over these next two games, as we said the other night. He'll be really, really wanting to fight to get a start at Wembley, because obviously he has been on this journey with Newcastle for a while. He's been there through the dark times as well, when he was our talisman and got out of many, shitty situations, get enough points to stay up and stuff like that. So obviously he'll be wanting to be on that pitch when we get to Wembley. So the only way he's going to be able to do that at the moment is by putting performances in, because at the end of the day, if he's not putting it in, Bruno walks back and says, but to be fair, I think will happen for the final anyway. But obviously ASM is going to want to stake a marker to say that even if he comes back in, you don't take him out the side, and it's going to have to be one of the other centre midfielders that do it. Wilson, we know he hasn't been prolific since the World Cup. Obviously, he got back on the score sheet last week and had a couple of other good chances to add more to his tally last week. Obviously, the tackle that was on him Eggard last week was a fantastic tackle to get back at him. Obviously, you'll want that header back, I can guarantee you, because obviously put that either side of Fabianski, and it was 2-1. Do you know what I mean? So that's interesting. But it's whether you think, obviously you look at Wilson there, and you would expect him to get the better of Metham and Senesi, which is I was going to ask Tom a bit more about him, because he was someone that Newcastle potentially looked at a year ago, and obviously there was a few links with him for the Sun as well. So I'll get his thoughts on that a bit later. But I think ASM, potentially he's probably got the ideal sort of fullback he'd want to be up against when he's having to knuckle down, because Adam Smith's getting on a bit now, and he's not gifted with the most pace, and for me he's what you'd class as like your old school fullback, Adam Smith, and I just think ASM could have a decent game against him. It's obviously the case with ASM is how is he going to be going the other way, but for me it starts the way with, you've got it on there, Pete, and I think that right-hand side as well, we've been fantastic down that right-hand side. A lot of, whenever you see the build-up stats of Newcastle, a lot of it comes down that right wing. But they understand that Trippier and Almiron have got since the start of playing together in pre-season. They just seem to know where they're going to be. And the good thing that we've seen over recent weeks is that Longstaff and Willock are seeming to make the runs as well inside to... it's not just a predictable ball between Almiron and Trippier. We've seen now that one for the goal against Fulham, obviously, when Longstaff put the ball in, Trippier was telling Almiron where to run, and we went a different way, went to Longstaff, ball in, back post Wilson, he puts it back across Isak for the winner. So it's good to see that there's more and more bonds getting built and understanding between not just the two on the right-hand side, it's the middle three as well, who are getting there, and obviously Wilson... you put that ball in that dangerous area and we know Wilson's a threat all day long. I think a lot of the issues we've had with Wilson in recent weeks is in some games he hasn't been getting the service to be put the ball away. The other argument is, has he been making the runs that he's used to be getting into the situations? He hasn't really been getting across your man like we know that Wilson's fantastic at doing. He has been a little bit more static. Has that been ring rust? Possibly, we don't know. Obviously, he was ill for a period of time when he got a really bad bug and stuff like that. So we don't know whether that was lingering off it. We don't know. Was it a bug? Was it another bout of COVID? We don't know. But obviously, hopefully, that goal last week will start kicking him on again, and hopefully, he can break his duck against his previous team.
Hopefully, from our perspective, definitely we definitely want that to happen. And yeah, he got more service against West Ham, and like you said, those through balls, one he scored, one he missed. He had the header, he was more active, and like you say, it might be lack of confidence, lack of activity in terms of getting him involved in the game. But I think these boys are key. I think they're going to win us the game on Saturday if they turn up. Almiron's dropped off slightly from his fantastic form before the World Cup. He needs to step that up. He's got, like you said, that great relationship there, but ASM needs a good game. He's got the perfect person to go up against, as you mentioned. When we played you in the cup, he seemed to give Smith a torrid time. He seems to have his number, but he needs to be able to go at him. I almost want him to be the old ASM. I want him to be selfish. I want him to be direct. I want him to just get the ball and take on 2 or 3 men and go for goal. I want to see that side of him come to light, because if that side of him comes to light, he'll be the guy that will win us a game. And he's proved it. He's done it before at Dean Court as well. But Keith, from what Ritchie said, is there anything you would add, anything you would change? Would you play someone else? Would Gordon come in for you, Isak? What are your thoughts?
I totally agree with the points that have been raised about ASM. He's, for me, I think since sort of like the Manchester City Wolves games, when he got injured, he hasn't quite looked himself. He hasn't seemed to have come back, really. I know that we've had the disruption of the World Cup, but it doesn't seem like the ASM we know for some reason. I know he was praised for 1 or 2 defensive interceptions that he made in previous few games, but I agree. I would like to see ASM, a bit of the old ASM, come through and take the opportunities that are there against, with not being disrespectful, in opposition, how Bournemouth have been playing this year. The game's there to be taken. And I agree. I want to see him come to the fore here, and if he doesn't, then he's got Gordon coming at him. There's the option there with Isak there as well. Isak's stating a claim because there's been end product there. There's been the goal that from the Fulham game, and also there was the goal that he set up for Joe Linton away to Southampton. So there's end product there from Isak. Gordon looked lively in the game, in the part that he played in the game against West Ham. So there's competition there. And that's why I want to see something from ASM in these next couple of games before the final. That would be my question mark there. And if he isn't producing it, then we've got to look to bring Gordon in at some point, I think, in the game. At Joe Linton, there's a little bit of a concern there, because is it right that he's 2 bookings away from a ban?
You're right. Yeah, correct.
And we don't need to not have Joe Linton play in the final. We need Joe Linton in that final.
He'd be in the final anyway, Keith,
Yeah.
because
you
can't have a suspension in the final. It would be the game afterwards that he'd miss.
Okay.
Like Wolves, I think.
Yeah.
Man City, I think, is it? If I'm right thinking.
Yeah.
No.
In that case, I wouldn't really change that. You need Joe Linton in the team, especially if you haven't got Bruno at the moment.
Yeah.
We don't want to be too unbalanced in that midfield by making too many changes.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, but I think you're right. Long term, ASM, Wilson, and I actually think Willock, with Bruno coming back in, are those 3 players that I think could potentially have their places lost in the team to the likes of Bruno, Gordon, and Isak that are waiting in the wings to come in to the team. I think long term, Burn with Target, or in next season a new left back coming in, we'll have something to think about. But I think Burns, playing well. He didn't play well, in my opinion, against West Ham, but he's had a good season so far. But that's long term. But these 3 players are the ones that I would be concerned if I was them about keeping their place. That is for sure. So coming back into it, before I get your predictions in particular, I want Tom's prediction. You got time for a few more questions?
Yeah,
Tom?
of course. Yeah.
We can go through a few. Where do we start? There's quite a lot here. Right, 1 second. Okay, let's talk about. I said I'd leave it to last, but let's talk about this man, Ryan Fraser. Okay, you've already talked about him briefly. You were very vocal the last time you were on about Ryan Fraser. You don't really sort of rate him as a player. What is the reaction that he's going to get? Be honest. Is it going to be super hostile? Even if he's on the bench, like imagine if he's getting warmed up on the side during the game. What are the reactions going to be towards him?
Yeah, it'll be the worst reception of players got at our place, I would have thought. Yeah, it was pretty mad when we played up at your place, but obviously you're up in the sky, so it was quite difficult to get it fully across. But yeah, he'll get absolutely slaughtered. I mean, people didn't realise when we played at your place, Eddie cleverly took him off when there was something going on. I think there was some sort of round of applause or something for a minute, and he took him off or there was an injury when we didn't really realise, which was funny. But I think I always thought he wouldn't be in the squad when you come down there. Eddie will make sure he's not in the squad because Eddie will know what abuse he'll get. But with him coming back on the bench last week, and obviously Bruno being out, that kind of gives another slot available on the bench. Looks like he might be. So yeah, he'll get absolutely hammered. Rightly so. And he's not very good either. I was really hoping he'd go he was linked with Howe, wasn't he, on deadline day? I thought that'd be great, wouldn't it? Leaving us, and then he's ended up at Hull. But no, I mean, I think he runs fast now and again, doesn't he? But he's not very good.
Heather Brighton fan, welcome to the channel. Has put he's going to get booed more than our manager.
Yeah.
That would be something from both perspectives. I've got to be honest. That'll be really, really interesting. I hope this makes sense to you. But Nathan Stapleton has put, does Semenyo have enough juice in his goose? But can you clear that up?
It's obviously Semenyo's a new player, but juice in the goose was a saying that's been used before. I used it on the last show stupidly, and it's been used on other things. But yeah, Semenyo looks good. Basically, it's said has he got enough about him? I think he probably does. It's a bit early to see, but if Dom's not fit, I think he'll probably lead the line again. He done all right. A difficult place at Brighton, but just didn't quite. He had a few chances he could have finished, but just didn't quite happen. But I'm quite happy with his signing. He's still quite young, so I think it'll be a good signing for us.
Okay. Cole Seggy's put, who would you bring in as your next manager? So we talked about this earlier on in the show. We talked about who would go. Ritchie mentioned about Dice, and you mentioned about Dice as well, Tom. Who would you bring in?
Oh, I don't know now. It feels like we've missed the boat on everyone. I was certainly one that was thinking, well, we were, let's give ourselves a real chance here and get Dyche, and obviously ended up going to Everton. It's really tough now because I think for that bounce and staying in the league, it's really, really tough because there's not many about. There really isn't. Obviously, there's always going to be the problem we have at Bournemouth is regardless of the money, we can't attract the Poch, a Tuchel. That's not happening. Yeah. So we've got to look at that next band. And I weirdly thought, let's have another link between the two clubs. Would Rafa fancy it? Do you reckon Rafa would fancy it? I don't know.
He's always up for a challenge, isn't he? He took on Everton. But I think Bournemouth wouldn't be a bad shot at all.
Yeah, But I mean, I'm trying to think kind of that manager just under that Tuchel Poch that maybe we could get in, which might be a Rafa, who knows. But I know we were linked heavily with Bielsa, but I think he'd want a full pre-season regardless anyway. So that would be one that would more be in the summer anyway. But you just want that at this stage of the season. You do want that short-term, that keep you up manager. And Dyche was the one. It was the race for Dyche, it felt, and Everton got him. So there's not an awful lot out there in that mould now, because I think the others are they're done now, aren't they? You're kind of Allardyce and people like that are well done. So yeah, it would have to be one I'd have to think about if we were to pull the trigger on Gary. But I'd get behind anyone if I felt like there was someone we're chasing. My worry is that it would be someone that we've just thrown up out of nowhere, really, which is a worry.
There's two people I hope it's not. I don't know if you're going to mention something, Ritchie. There's two people.
I was going to bring up a name, and the only reason I was going to bring up the name it's because he was linked with a job back in Germany at Hoffenheim this week, but he turned it down. So that makes you start to think whether there's potentially jobs going in the Premier League. He's after. Obviously, Leeds look like they're looking for a manager as well, and obviously he's got a relationship to the South Coast anyway. But obviously, it's, what would your thoughts be on like Ralph Hasenhüttl?
Yeah, he's been one that a few people have mentioned. I'd probably take him actually, and it would annoy them as well if he kept us up. But I think you can imagine. I think, to be honest, Southampton fans are kind of looking at it now and going, the grass isn't always greener. Do you know what I mean? Maybe we didn't support him enough and give him enough because they were taking back now. So yeah, I wouldn't be totally against that. I think I always like managers that I feel are long term. Obviously, we always had that with Eddie. So I do like the thought of getting a manager and you go, right, they're going to build their team. This is the kind of figurehead of a direction. And I think Ralph is kind of a more of a long term manager. So yeah, I wouldn't be against that. I wouldn't be against that at all.
I've got. Have you got anyone in mind, Keith, that you think might be the next manager of Bournemouth?
I think somebody like Hasenhüttl would be a good shout. I think he did good things. I think he was understated and he was quite underrated with what he actually did in Southampton. It would just be, I think some of the downs were quite highlighted. The few 9-0s that were in there. But there was one stage where they were near enough top of the league, pretty early doors, weren't they? They made some really good starts to that Premier League season. I think he could do a good job at another club. I just think it's unfortunate. I agree with what Jordan says. The likes of the Pochers, it's just unfortunate at the minute Bournemouth aren't quite at that level yet where they could, it's in terms of scale of club where they could get somebody in like a Poch yet.
Yeah,
I've got one that I think might end up at Bournemouth, but I kind of hope he doesn't because I don't really rate him personally. And that's Frank Lampard.
Oh, don't.
He's got a link with the South Coast.
I know,
obviously lives in Bournemouth and obviously relations and all the rest of it. And I've just got a feeling that
I think I could see something like that happening because, as you say, there's the logic there, and it's where he can rebuild, and. So I would see somebody like Lampard there rather than Gerrard.
Yeah,
for those reasons.
Yeah, I was worried about that. spoke to someone the other day, and I said about that link, and that worries me that he's now available. And there is that link to the South Coast and Harry, and there's Harry still. He goes to every game, so Harry is still, he speaks to the right people. I would have thought. So, yeah, that's a bit of a concern because I agree. I'm not a massive fan, and that's literally just off what he's done as a manager so far. I mean, it's not something good. But, if it was in the summer and we're in the Championship and you're kind of giving him another chance, I'd kind of go, all right. But I certainly won't. But he's got no credentials to keep us up. So, no.
You say that, but he kept Everton up. That will be on his CV.
Yeah,
and that's the thing.
right.
He might well convince your board by slapping that on his CV to say, I kept Everton in the Premier League. And
but the thing against that, though, Pete, is he took over Everton 17th and left them in 17th.
I agree with you. I think he's awful. I think he's an awful manager. But I agree with everything you're saying, Ritchie. But I just think that sometimes when teams are in difficult situations, they look at people, they look at CVs, and they'll just go, okay, what have they done? What have they done? And Lampard's played with Chelsea, that managed Chelsea in the Champions League, saved Everton, and he'll probably put on in his interview those big images of him celebrating and all the blue smoke all over and they'll get sucked into that all.
He has another angle as well. Does he have a lot of friends in the media as well that can talk him up as well, talk up his achievements as well? I mean, let's think as well, and let's consider as well, you could talk favorably as well about the season he had at Chelsea, where he came in and, they were supposedly hamstrung for that season. And he had some fledgling players there, the likes of your Tammy Abrahams and that. And they had a good year that year. But when the money started coming in again and the bigger personalities coming in again, it was more of a struggle in the following season. And he parted ways with Chelsea, sadly. But there's enough positive experiences there for his friends in the media to talk up to get him positioned to another job in the Premier League.
I annoyingly agree with you all. The other one that was weirdly, I don't know if it's any sort. We've got new American owners, so now they're all talking about Jesse Marsh, who just got sacked from Leeds. So I don't know. There's all kind of weird.
David, I'm not. Did he take another job somewhere?
Yeah, he's gone to Norwich.
Yeah, I was going to say. I thought he'd taken another job. It might be Craig. It might be a little bit too early for him to move there. But again,
Tom, I don't know if this is just like. I don't know if it's logical thinking from my point of view here, right? But it might, it shoot me down straight away and stuff, because obviously we've went through there. And there isn't really a standout manager, as you've mentioned. Yeah, it's like obviously you're in between that limbo of a level of manager and stuff like that. And obviously you've mentioned you want a long-term manager going forward, but you're in this precarious position now, aren't you?
Yeah.
And I see it for me. It seems to be shouting out with us, right? You've just mentioned Harry Redknapp, right? He's there every single game. He watches them. He knows the players. So could you see him as a stopgap till the end of the season?
It wouldn't. Yeah, it wouldn't absolutely shock me. He's weirdly he done it before. We were in I think we were in League One at the time, before Eddie come back, and we were really struggling. And he just come in to like help out our manager, like literally just to like be a shoulder for him. For a couple of games, it was odd. So yeah, I know what you mean. It wouldn't. The only thing that I think changes these sort of things now is that, and as you mentioned about being in that limbo, is that we've got new owners. So it's not all the previous like we had before. That was you go down that route because of people they know and stuff. It's brand new owners who have obviously got a bit of cash, and I think they would rather go for a name, or someone upcoming and that sort of stuff. But I don't know. But yeah, the frustrating thing is there isn't someone obvious now that Deutsch's gone, but just hopefully not Lampard. I mean, I'm fed up of the English centre midfielders. We had Scott Parker, Gary O'Neill. I don't want Frank Lampard. They're all bloody as bad as each other.
Jonathan Woodgate.
Oh yeah, we had Woody. We don't mind Woody. We didn't mind Woody. He was all right.
Well, I think we could have a conversation about this.
I think he'd be a good coach. I don't think he's a manager.
Yeah, I would agree with that. One or two in the chat. Yeah, I agree with you, Bobby. Harry Redknapp, surely he is retired at this point.
Yeah.
And,
Neil Warnock.
Yeah, that was in there. Big
old school name.
Forest Green. So he's out of the picture. Craig Lee maybe chuckle. He put fat sham. That's how he associates Sal Allardyce from that perspective. I'm going to run through a few questions just really quickly because we'll take a little bit longer on the manager talk. Although it was a great chat with regards to that. Michael Palmer's got a great question in. Will Billing go in the summer? If so, how much will he cost? That's probably not what you want to hear, Tom, about him potentially leaving. But I actually rate him as a player. I think he's a talented player. We were linked with him. It might have been in the summer, really tentatively. And I was looking at it and thinking, actually, our midfield, he wouldn't be a bad shout. Obviously, things develop and change over time. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think if we went down, I think we probably there would be potentially lose him because he's still relatively young as well. I think we got him in for about 10, so I think we'd make a decent amount of money on him. But it's a weird one for Billing because he's got this horrible. If we go down, he's got this horrible record of he'd have been a Premier League player for 4 seasons and been relegated in 3 of them. He's been relegated for us once before. He got relegated at Huddersfield, so he could get relegated again for us, obviously. And I remember Huddersfield fans saying that, and I can kind of see it that when everything's going all right, you know, you're performing all right, and you know you're keeping the ball and stuff, he looks brilliant. But when you're up against it in a bit of a scrap, he can be a bit of a luxury player. Obviously, completely different player. But you know, like Arsenal fans used to say about Ozil, for example, it's that sort of vibe sometimes you get is when you really need to scrap and he just goes missing a little bit. But you know, he's clearly a good player, and we don't want to lose him. But I don't know if that's just a horrible stat in it, like. So I think he'd go to a lower end Premier League club and then they'd look at that stat and think that's not ideal, is it? He keeps getting relegated. But yeah, I think if he went down, he'd be one that there'll be a few of them, but I think him and Solanke and would definitely be on the radar of a few clubs to take a punt for sure. But I think we'd get 20 plus million for him, I would have thought.
Okay. Interesting. A couple of really good questions here. I'll come to you. Carl Seggy's put for Tom. Speaking of takeovers, what are your thoughts on your takeover? Obviously, it's a relatively new takeover that you've had. Now you've had time to digest it all. What are your thoughts?
It's strange. It's obviously a bit like yourselves. It's exciting, but you want to believe in everything that's being said. So we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, in terms of January, they certainly. You know, they spent the money that they said they would. Spent a lot of money. Soon as they come in, they said, "Don't worry, we won't be relegated," which is starting to look tough now. But I think I think it's exciting. It's definitely exciting, and it's we needed it as much as I like the kind of I quite like the small kind of family feel club that we have, but we need to start moving if we want to stay. We've been in the top 2 leagues the last decade now, so we're starting to be in them top 2 tiers, which most Bournemouth fans can't really remember. We're always in the bottom 2, so we need to move with that. We need to get the bit better infrastructure, new stadium, them sort of things, and that's what the new owners are saying, that they want to sort stuff out off the pitch, which is what's always held us back, as you all know, because I'm sure Newcastle fans really struggle to get a ticket at our place. So that sort of stuff's exciting. So I think we'll see what happens, but I think we got to be excited about it, really.
And the follow on here from Geordie Jack, I've doubts about Bournemouth's new owners. How realistic do you think their attendance revenue expectations are?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like I say, it's very difficult because it's so new. All we can say at the moment is they've come in and they've had one transfer window and they've chucked a lot of money at it at a time where we look like we could quite easily go down. So, they have backed the manager and they have spent a lot of their own money. So that's something. But it's still too early for them to put a print on it yet, so we'll have to wait and see. All we can go off is what they're saying, and the things they're saying about infrastructure and about the stadium is good, is positive at the moment. So we'll have to wait and see. But there's always a bit of apprehension in there when there's owners, particularly when they're American for some reason. It does feel a bit like, oh God. But at the moment, it's okay, and we'll have to wait and see. But thinking positively about it.
John's backing you up. He's put, hello everyone. Are Bournemouth the unluckiest team in England, or does the EPL have it in for them? The penalty situations are beyond farcical. Would you agree with that?
We haven't been very good lately, but I do. It isn't the reason we are where we are, but we have been unfortunate this season for sure. There's been some horrific ones. There was one at West Ham that was like literally a volleyball motion and they scored and it wasn't given as a handball because it was in a different phase and all this rubbish. we've had a lot that have just hit the arms of players and then have not been penalties, and then when they've been against us, they're penalties. So yeah, I think we have conceded the most penalties through VAR this season. So yeah, we've probably been a little bit unfortunate, and maybe that'll do full circle, and we'll get a few decisions. But it's not why we are where we are in the league. I can't lie. But yeah, we've been unlucky.
I think we can sympathise because we had a lot of atrocious decisions at the start of the season, particularly. So we can sympathise with you on that one.
Yeah,
definitely. Last couple questions. Question about Jefferson Lerma. What's the situation on his contract and how's he rated with Bournemouth fans, despite him loving a bookie and I take him at Newcastle on a free all day?
He's my favourite player for sure. I think he's superb. I was worried in January that you guys might come in actually, because I know Eddie bought him in for us. Was the highest pay, the highest transfer fee we had paid for a player when Eddie bought Jefferson Lerma in, and I just looked at it and thought he's going on a free at the moment. He hasn't signed a contract, and if you're Eddie Howe and you know him, I thought you might come in sneakily and try and get him on the cheap, but obviously didn't. I don't actually. I mean, we're not 100% sure. What the murmurings we've got is that Lerma's always wants to stay here, but he wants he's like 30 and he wants like a 3-year deal, and the club are kind of a bit cautious because if we go down, he's getting on a bit. Yeah. You know, we only want to give him and I think he's trying to go, you know, I'm really important to you. I want a longer contract. So I think they're kind of at a bit of a standstill at the moment. So we'll see. I think if we stay up, which is very unlikely, but I think if we stay up, we'll just give him what he wants because we'll have the money to stay in the Premier League. If we go down, I don't think he'll be that bothered anyway, and I think he could get a move. I personally have always felt he'll go back abroad, but you know, he's a top player. Honestly, he's one of them that doesn't get looked at because he's playing for Bournemouth. But you know, one of the top today, he's not, in my opinion. When I've seen him, I've looked at. There was a period where obviously Basuma got a lot of credit, and there was Ndidi, one there at Leicester, who had a spell where everyone was big. I thought he's not. There's not a lot in it with Lerma, but because he's at Bournemouth, he's probably not getting seen quite as much. But honestly, just sat in front of that back four. He's really, really good at what he does. He's like the glue. So, yeah, we would miss him. And he's only got a couple of bookings this season, so he's sorted that out a little bit as well.
Interesting. And before I ask you the final question, Tom said, have you subscribed to the show? Have you liked and subscribed to the show, Tom? Of course he has. It goes without saying, Russ. But the final question is, do you think Bournemouth will survive relegation this season?
I mean, it's very difficult because you always want to back your team, and I'll always hold out hope. But I think if I was talking from my head right now, no, I don't. I think that the Deutsch things can hurt us. I think at the moment, you look at Southampton are probably the only team, well, they are in the league, obviously the only team that are below us, and the only team that look as bad as us, really. And they beat us at our place, keep a clean sheet. So. Yeah, it's tough to see it at the moment. I've mentioned it enough times. Cut 2 wins in 5 months ain't going to keep you in the league. So you never know with football. A few things can change. You know, you nick a skanky goal, you get a decision, something happens for you. Who knows? But at the moment, the improvement in Wolves, the improvement in Forest, Deutsch going to Everton. I look at it now and go, I could maybe make a case for us to finish above Southampton and maybe Leeds if they don't get the next appointment right. But then I've got to find another one. I struggle to find another one. So I'll be lying if I said I expected us to avoid relegation, but I'll be holding out hope anyway. Who knows?
Questions for Tom tonight. Absolutely brilliant from our chatters as always. And I have to give a big shout out to Munch. Thank you for becoming a member of Loaded Mag NUFC. Thank you so much. And for everyone that's either put their donations in or to the channel or become a member to Loaded Mag NUFC. Just a couple of shout outs. Michael Palmer said, always a little disappointed not to see Keith in a tux when he comes on with his stats. Come on, man, you're better than that. So no pressure, Keith.
Save it for the final. Save it for the final.
We'll hold you to that.
Everybody on Loaded will be suited and booted for the final.
Daz, clip it. I'm sure we'll make you remind you of that. And Ritchie, Davies come in with a question or for you. Can you tell everyone how to pronounce Bern? It feels weird when the sponsors is getting called Shy Burns.
Yeah, Daz is awful. Daz is awful seeing it. No, you're right. It's Daz. Daz just cannot see a bed for the sake of it. He's always Shy Burns. It's not Burns. Burns.
Burns. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Yes, we do hope they are straight red cards, by the way. 2 yellows is no good to us at the weekend. We want straight red cards for Rashford and Fernandes.
They're fit, mate. The suspension doesn't carry to the final.
Oh, does it not? What,
No.
Even in the league?
Nope. You can't be, as far as I can tell, you can't actually be suspended for the final, so it would just go through the domestic competition. So it would be just the league games, unfortunately.
Sorry.
We'll just have to see if someone will break the legs on Saturday instead.
Oh my God. I didn't say that. Magda Bates, I'm sorry if you're crying now. I apologize to that. Apologize for that. But last question for you, Tom. He said, do you think Jason Tindall has too many sunbeds? He just seems to have the best tan in the world, but he lives so far north where he very rarely has sunlight. I've got to be honest.
He was always tan down there, yeah. So I think there might be a cheeky sunbed in there, for sure. But yeah, no, he's a good one. I definitely wouldn't be surprised if he gets the odd sunbed. But in terms of talking about tucks and that, I'll tell you what, if we stay up, I'll come on this channel next season and I'll go full suit if we stay up, all right?
That's it there. Clip it, Daz. And you know what? I have to say, before we do predictions, I really do hope you stay up, Tom, because, obviously, really respect Bournemouth for what you've done. Obviously, the links with so many Newcastle players. And more importantly, it's just great to talk to you, you and your channel. So I really do look forward to that, hopefully next season and beyond. But we have to get to predictions. What is it going to be? It's the late kickoff on Saturday. So come 7:30 on Saturday evening, what is the score going to be? Ritchie, I'll come to you first. From a Newcastle perspective, what do you think the result's going to be?
Well, I said last week, I thought there's going to be a spanking coming Sunday, and then I think it could be potentially on Saturday. I am going to go 3-0 Newcastle.
3-0. Hey, we're meant to be keeping Tom on side, not hammering him down.
Keith the Cubby always sits on the fence.
Yeah, that's true. Tom, will come to you as the Bournemouth fan. What do you think the result's going to be come Saturday?
I mean, my heart says we'll nick a point, but my head is going 4-0 Newcastle.
Worse than you, Ritchie.
Maybe it's honestly, no Bournemouth fan will be surprised to hear me say that. It's been really bad. It's been really bad since World Cup. As I said, we scored one goal. We scored one goal since the World Cup. So yeah, and we're just conceding for fun. So, and set pieces, we're really bad. And you've got Trippier, and yeah, I think it could be a bad one for us. Never know, but yeah, I do think you'll beat us quite comfortably.
Right, you've got some work to do, Keith. 00 Stato, because I'll tell you what, there's some big scores been put out there. Are you going to sit on the fence, or are you going to go and put your allegiances and say Newcastle are going to win the game comfortably? What are your thoughts?
Well, Newcastle did win down at Bournemouth 4-1 a few seasons ago, but we have to be realistic here and say that was during the strange COVID period of the season without any fans. They generally do struggle.
It was definitely strange, Keith. It was under Steve Bruce for a start.
Exactly. It was, a brilliant goal from Alvaro Morón, and that is remembered. And I think it was a brilliant, some brilliant. I think Murphy nearly scored, or somebody. I think Hayden nearly scored. It was a brilliant game, but they generally do struggle at that ground. It's generally a low-scoring game, and they're not conceding that many goals, Bournemouth. So it's usually like a 1-0 or either side, or even a score draw. So it is generally a low-scoring fixture. Also, as well, pointed out in the stats earlier, at home they've only conceded more than one goal once at that Vitality. So I think this will be a low-scoring game. Newcastle have only scored twice in 5 games in the league. So they're not scoring. We'll kind of get away from it. I think it's 4 in 5 games that haven't scored a goal. So for that reason, I think I'm going to go and I'm going to say it's going to be, again, a low scoring game. I can see Newcastle winning it 1-0, but let's not be surprised if Bournemouth, after 12 games, pull something out the hat here the run's got to end sometime. But I would say maybe Newcastle to edge it if they're all going in the right direction. They all pull together. They pull out some magic. Maybe Isaac comes on, but I can quite easily see it going the other way as well. So every time I've backed Newcastle this season, they've let us down. Every time I remember Leeds at Christmas, 2-0 at least.
That's why you don't back them.
0-0. I hate backing Newcastle because they do this to me every time.
Okay.
So it's best off just saying a draw or a defeat, but I'm going to say a narrow victory. It could be a narrow victory to Newcastle.
But is that a 1-0 victory as you go for?
A narrow, like the one in the League Cup.
He doesn't even want to say
going off somebody and going in the net.
He doesn't even want to say it. It's gotta be. Okay, I'm going to take that as a 1-0. For me, I'm going 2-0 Newcastle. I think we'll create a lot of chances. I think the defense is very, very solid at the moment. And I just think we need to get back to winning ways. It's simple as that. And Eddie Howe would have drummed that back into them this week. So that's our predictions. Lots of them in the chat. We'll put them on the screen as we're on our way out. But again, before we go, Tom, do you want to plug where your channel and where we can find you?
Yeah, it's Back of the Net on YouTube, AFC Bournemouth podcast. So yeah, we do loads of stuff on there because we do a little match day vlog. There'll be fan cams after the game. If there's any Newcastle fans making a trip, you can come and see us there. And yeah, we'll do like a second look show, about the game. And there's also stuff on there when we come up to your place. And, we spoke about the away day in general. And you're the only ones in the top at the moment on our little league table. The away games, we talk about everything apart from the match in terms of like pubs and, the stadium and all that stuff. Put them into a tier, and Newcastle are the only ones top. So, yeah, you'll be happy to see that one because it's not a bad night out, Newcastle. So we enjoyed that one. But yeah, that'd be great if you come over there. But all the best to you guys. And we got 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, and 4-0 in here. So I think the nil's probably right. I'll put it that way. But if we don't get, I do think it's interesting, Keith, because you're saying that. I thought that's nice actually. I didn't forget about we haven't conceded quite as many at home. I do think that will change soon. We got you guys, then Man City, then Liverpool in our next 3 home games. So that might change.
Just remember, out of all of those predictions, you scored Newcastle the highest, Tom.
I love Eddie so much. So okay.
We love the word clip it. So Dazzle no doubt clip any of these things and we'll get it in there. But look, massive thanks to everyone in the chat. Your questions were outstanding for Tom. We tried to get through them all. Apologies if we didn't get through them all. Keith, 00 Stato, absolute legend.
I'd just like to say there, was it Geordie Toon for Life who said I must be a nightmare in a restaurant? Somebody just put a comment in there. Not at all. If I'm in an Indian restaurant, I just go 4-4-2. I know exactly what I want. I'll just generally, you know what it's like? You order the same thing every time. You'll order a biryani or you'll order a Rogan Josh or something like that. And you just generally go with what you order. I don't generally deviate from it.
Just football scores then. That's all it is. Just football scores.
It's all the variables in football. That's the problem.
That's true.
Well, to be fair, Pete, he hasn't deviated from the same fence all season.
Oh, that is true. That is true. But look, stats as always outstanding. And of course, Tom, absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to come and join us. And look, Ritchie, great to have you on. Your opinions, as always, and questions towards Tom. And look, we'll be back for more. The preview the review will be back at some point, whether it's Saturday or Sunday. I'm sure we'll tweet out and let you guys know. And in addition to that, we'll tweet out to remind people who weren't able to watch live, and we'll tag in Tom and his channel as well, so we can make sure that. And they're in the link in the description of the show. There, the channel's there, so click that on, and it sends it straight off as well, guys and girls. It's been an absolute pleasure, and of course, we do love playing away. How do you like that?
drink it